Seeing, welcome everybody. It's so wonderful to see everyone's faces as we gather together for our fall gathering of the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council. Seeing that we are at time and we have quorum, I would like to officially constitute this meeting in the name of Jesus Christ, the one true head of the church, and by the authority vested in me by the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council for whatever business may properly come before us. And I'm going to invite Terry Smith to present our opening and procedural motion. Proposal 1, it's found on pages 19 and 20 of the workbook. And this will clarify the procedures by which we will conduct our business today.
Morning, folks. Is that okay? Thanks. So the opening and procedural motion is what is the issue? We need to establish the procedures by which we will conduct the business for the day. It clarifies and confirms the way in which decision making will happen. We're gonna what we will do with this as a consent docket is adopt the agenda as it was circulated, approve the minutes from the previous meetings, and receive the minutes from the meetings of the Executive, Congregational Support Commission, Human Resources Commission, Discipleship and Justice Commission. And we would then appoint Gary Clark as parliamentarian, myself as chair, agenda and business, name Andrea Allen to serve as our equity support team member, name President Jennifer Irving, chair, and then myself as agenda and business committee, and executive minister Mark Laird, executive assistant Max Weinkinson, and recording secretary Don Blanchard as the agenda business committee. Set the bounds for the meeting. It's a Zoom call and Grace United Church in Hanover. Make designated representations from any church, United Church ministry other than congregation, which has been invited to become a community of faith by entering into a covenant with Region Council, a member of the Regional Council for this meeting. Make all guests corresponding members. Set deadline for new business to be submitted to the agenda business as 12:30 today, and adopt the following method for dealing with proposals. Step 1 is the presenter will outline what the issue is and suggest ways in which the Regional Council might respond to the issue. The president will inquire if there are any questions for clarification. Please note that this is for clarification of the proposal only. Step 3, the president will then ask if there are any changes or additions being suggested for the proposal. And the fourth step is if there is significant agreement, the president will invite the presenter to move the motion, at which point the Regional Council enters into a formal debate process.
Cool. Thank you, Terry. So I'm just going to practice my what we do with proposals. This is a proposal. We have many more today. So exciting, but this isn't my strong suit, so I get to practice on this opening motion. Are there any questions for clarification on what Terry just presented with proposal number 1 in our opening and procedural motion? Now, I will point out that during our meeting today, we are going to be saving the chat for specifically points of order and points of privilege. Okay, we have someone who's using a screen reader to participate in our meeting today. And so whenever we type things in the chat, the screen reader immediately reads them, even if someone else in the meeting, like myself, is talking. So that's one of the reasons why we're going to be strict about limiting the use of the chat today. So if you do have a question for clarification, or later when we're dealing with other proposals, you want to speak to it, I invite you to raise your hand and then I will recognize you in order to do so. Your virtual hand, yes. Now, if you're me, when I do this, my Zoom is like, oh, you raised your hand, and it will raise my hand for me. It's pretty exciting. Michelle, I see you raised your hand.
Just to demonstrate.
Oh, Thank you very much for that demonstration. See how that works. When I do that and recognize you, I invite you to state your name and where you are joining us from, what community of faith you are representing or pastoral charge as you join this meeting today, and then raise your question or concern. Linda Roberts, I see you have your hand raised.
Hi, good morning, Jennifer. Linda Roberts, DLster with Lucknow Trinity Pastoral Charge. I just wanted to ask, I only see Andrea's name as the Equity Monitor team and wondered if I should be added as I'm speaking to one of the slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, for your question. On the slide itself, your name was there written down, but Terry didn't get that little update that I made at the last minute to our slide deck. So he was reading off of a slide deck that he had printed, but yes, you will be included in that motion as part of our equity support team for this meeting. Thank you for raising that. That is a good question for clarification. Good job. Are there any additions or changes that people would like to make to our opening and procedural motion? Diane, I see your hand raised.
Diane Dick here. I'm from Georgian Shores United Church in Owen Sound. I'm still on clarification. I'm sorry if I didn't get that in fast enough. Just wondering, I see in the written proposal number 1, it isn't included Discipleship and Justice Commission with the other, like the Congregational Support Commission is there to approve their minutes, and it isn't written in the form, but it was said, so I think that's enough. But I just wanted to be sure that that it doesn't have to be in the written one.
Yeah, there were no minutes since our last meeting from the Discipleship and Justice Commission, and that's why it's not in there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question, Diane, and very timely, and everyone's doing such a good job of naming themselves and where they're from and then having their question. Any other questions or additions or changes to this motion? Okay, now I'm going to invite a mover and a seconder for this motion. So Terry, you're going to move this motion. And can I invite a seconder? Oh, Mark says he's going to second the motion. So we have the motion moved and seconded. I'm going to invite any debate at this time. So this is when the official debate would start, when we're dealing with other proposals. You can kind of get the idea of it. Seeing no one with their hand raised, I'm going to call for the vote. Can we have someone explain how voting is going to work in this virtual meeting today?
Yes, President Jennifer, all of the votes will be done through a poll. So when you ask for the poll to be launched, it will be launched, people will fill it in, and then when you call for it to end, you'll see the results. Or Mark will see the results and tell you.
Okay, and so there will be a little bit of extra time given to ensure that everyone has a chance to read the question and respond to it. So I'm going to invite the poll to be launched now. So we're just leaving things up a little bit longer than you may be used to just increase accessibility and allow screen readers to have a chance to read. I did notice, like in the question, it just says the which proposal you're voting on. So in the future, right before we vote, in future proposals, I will re-say what is in the proposal, or someone will, so that it is fresh in our minds what exactly we are voting on, not just proposal 2. Which one was that? Or proposal 7? I can't remember. We'll make sure we've got the question having been spoken aloud right prior to voting. Okay, I'm going to ask for the poll to be closed. And that was unanimously passed. Okay, so and just a reminder that the deadline for new business is at 12:30 today. Okay. Now that everything is official, good morning and welcome to the fall meeting of the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council on Zoom. We are gathered together once again through the wonders of technology. Hopefully you've all been able to hear me and see me, but if you can't, it is our hope that you'll be able to access technology like the closed captioning, described video, and screen readers that will help everyone participate fully in our meeting today, and that technical difficulties will be few and far between and won't detract from our meeting as we widen the circle to include all. And I'll just remind again about how we're going to be using the chat today. That we're just going to be using it for points of privilege and points of order. However, if you want to private message someone, that is how we're inviting you to still have that chance to chat with one another as an aside to the meeting. So feel free at the bottom of the chat bar, there's that everyone button, and you can make it drop down and you could just choose who you want to. You could type in a name at the top and see if they're at the meeting and give them a private chat, private message. For those who haven't met me yet, my name is Jennifer Irving. I use the pronouns she, her, and I am the president of Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council. I'm so glad that you have been able to join our Zoom meeting today. I have my camera on and show up today in a cowl neck, woven brown and black and gray sweater, long brown hair with some silver streaks, maybe more than I realized on camera. It's really shining out nice. It's parted on the side, and I am still in need of a haircut. I mentioned it at the spring meeting, and it still hasn't happened yet. My hazel eyes are behind purple frame metal glasses, and because of sensitivities to chemicals and scents, my Caucasian skin is makeup free, but I did try there's a lipstick feature on Zoom, so I am wearing a virtual lipstick to try to help it be easier for people to read my lips. What you can't see is that I am still deeply grieving the death of my husband in July. And so I invite your grace as we gather together today. I pray that you will understand if I have to take a break or step aside for a moment or two. I know there are many who can step in if needed, and I give thanks. In the same vein, I extend grace to you and remind you to honor what it is that you need during the day, whatever it is. It's a long time to spend in front of a computer screen, even with scheduled breaks. So please know you are supported in caring for yourself. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded and will be shared on our website following the meeting. So those who keep their cameras off will be sure not to show up on the video. Today, as we consider the ripple effect of our faithful stewardship of our resources, articulate our dreams and visions for the wider church in our proposals to General Council, make space for diverse voices to be heard, and more, we are widening the circle. We are one even as we are many. As we gather to share the work that rightly comes before this court, I recognize here in Hanover, we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the three fires known as the Dawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi First Nations. We also give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation and the Métis people for being the traditional keepers of this land. I invite you to hold in your heart the traditional keepers of the land you join this meeting from, and any treaties in effect, acknowledging that we are all a treaty people. May we continue to work to be in right relations by speaking up and speaking out against systemic racism and colonialism. May our land acknowledgement be a sign of our ongoing commitment to living into right relations. May we never cease to work toward wholeness of the first peoples of this land. Okay, we have a slide now to introduce the leadership team for our meeting. There's myself. I'm going to endeavor to lead this meeting efficiently and properly. I think we have a slide, right? Okay. These are the people, a few of the people in the room with me today. Terry Smith is here, who just did our proposal number 1. You didn't meet his face because his camera's not working for some reason. Ugh, technical difficulties, they happen. You are not alone if you are having some. Also in the room with me is Executive Minister Mark Laird. And not in the room is Gary Clark, parliamentarian. Fair warning, Gary, me and rules of order have issues. Wonder Chimbinga, Alex Jebson, and Roz Vincent Haven are our worship team, who you will meet following these introductions. Max Watkinson is here in the room with us, our new executive assistant, and Dawn Blanchard will be taking the minutes. Oh, right. I thought she was just joining from home instead of here, but Dawn is sick today, so Max will double roll and take the minutes for our meeting today, capably recording everything that happens here. Our Zoom techs are John Neff and Michelle Pettick. John will be sharing slides and ensuring all the presentations are ready to go, and Michelle will be working to ensure that I notice anybody who puts their hands up and the tech runs smoothly for participants. So if you want a private message, Michelle or John, with anything, if you have any issues, you can go ahead and do that. Oh, okay. For those who have need of a chaplain for any reason throughout our meeting, we have both Kevin Steeper and our president-elect, Rebecca Duncan, who have agreed to be available. Okay. They're going to put their contact information in the chat now. This is the one other time we're going to use the chat so that you have access to it. And we're just going to take a minute. I'm going to stop talking so that I don't talk over the screen reader.
Can I have the Wi-Fi?
And so you can reach Kevin at casesteeper@united-church.ca. And his phone number is 226-222-0454 if texting is easier for you. And Rebecca can be reached at Rebecca, it's REBEKAH, Jane, JANE 73 @gmail.com. And her phone number is 416-254-9479 if you would like to text. Andrea Allen and Linda Roberts from our equity support form our equity support team for this meeting, and they will be putting their contact information in the chat so that if there are any accessibility or equity concerns, you can be in contact with them. And you can also use private message to reach out. I should have said that about the chaplains as well. I'm going to invite them to be spotlighted now and invite them to put their information in the chat. And when they're spotlighted, they could read out their information as they put it in the chat. They're going to lead us through the ways we're going to strive to be in community together that will honor diversity and promote inclusion and equity in this space.
Good morning. I'm Linda Roberts and welcome to everyone. I'm going to go through the BRAVE acronym, Commitment to Community Safety, this morning. The breakdown of it is we strive in this time of co-learning to be brave by B, being accountable for the impact of both our words and our silence. R, reflecting on and naming our own biases. A, actively listening. V, vocalizing questions that arise from our learning. And E, encountering new ideas with curiosity and wonder. My email is lroberts_54@hotmail.com. And my cell number is 519-440-6328. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrea Allen, and I serve the community of Westminster United Church in Waterloo. My email address is rev.andrea.allen@gmail.com, rev.andrea.allan@gmail.com, and my cell phone number, which works for text or calling, is 519-301-7864. I am going to be going through with you all the region's safety, sanctuary, and unconditional love affirming ministry's vision statement. Striving to be faithful followers of Jesus in our time and place, Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council will continue to remove barriers to participation in the life and work of the Regional Council and society, committing ourselves to be open to the Spirit, resisting all forms of oppression. We welcome and celebrate people of any sexual orientation and gender identity, and all others who are marginalized. The Regional Council staff, executive, commissions, networks, and members commit to working toward fulfilling the vision statement by firstly continuing to remove barriers to participation in the life and work of all three regions, and specifically here today, Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council, to continuing to work toward removing barriers to participation in society. We commit to being open to the Spirit, commit to continue the work of resisting oppression, and commit to welcoming and celebrating people of any sexual orientation and gender identity. We know as equity team that we have a lot of work to do to continue the work of being an equitable regional council, and in this meeting as well. We have worked hard to consider the various ways we can be equitable to the needs and abilities of all people here, and ways that we can work towards removing barriers for seen and unseen abilities and disabilities. And we also know that we will make mistakes, and that there are ways of being more accessible that we aren't aware of. And so Linda and myself commit to working toward making this place, this space, a braver space, trying to navigate ways to make this more accessible for all people. So please do not hesitate to reach out to Linda or myself or anyone else on the meeting team if there are ways that we have fallen short, or if there are ways that would be more helpful for you. We also recognize in being accessible, we have competing ways of being accessible for different needs. For example, some people really need to have the, oh goodness, the words left my head, but the words, the transcription underneath for those who either need help focusing or those who struggle with hearing or are deaf. And at the same vein, for those who have low sight or are blind, that would be unbelievably difficult for them to have because that screen reader would be reading it and they wouldn't be able to hear. So we're trying really hard to balance ways of being accessible for all people, while also working within the limitations we have and the limitations of what we know right now. So thank you so much for joining us, and for all who have been willing to name out loud the ways in which we can continue to be more accessible for all.
Thank you, Andrea and Linda. With these ideals before us, let us join in a time of worship.
Thank you. My name is Wanda Chimvinga. I'm at Pine River United Church here in Kincardine. I will invite you to join me in our call to worship. We are the body of Christ.
Sorry, Wonder, we're just going to take a second to get the slide up and also spotlight Alex Jebson and Roz Vincent Haven, who will be joining you to lead this call to worship and then present our worship today.
Thank you.
I think we're going to sing first, are we not?
Sure.
I believe we are. While they're getting
We
that
are
set.
indeed. Yeah, we're going to sing first. We're going to join together in singing verse 1 of Voices United number 402. We are one. And we've got some music that's been created for this.
John, I don't think you shared with your sound. We can't hear anything.
We're just going to get all the technical difficulties out of the way in worship.
While they're sorting that out, I'll introduce myself. I'm Reverend Alex Jepson, he, him. I serve at Blythe and Brussels United Churches in Huron County.
Thank you, Alex. And I invite our other worship leaders to introduce themselves as well. Raj, you're
Raj,
muted.
Okay, I'm Roz Vincent Haven. I'm a retired diaconal minister. I live in Waterloo, Ontario, and most Sundays I sit on the pew at Emmanuel United in Waterloo.
Now I will invite you to join me in this call to worship. We are one. We are the body of Christ.
The hand clapping, toe tapping, heart pumping, mouth tasting, arms embracing.
Justice seeking, hymn singing, love making, bread breaking, risk taking, body
of Christ.
Baptized by one Spirit, we are members of one body.
Many and varied in gender, color, sexuality, age, class, and ability. We are members of Christ's beautiful body. None of us can say to another, I have no need of you.
For all
Together,
and
we find
wholeness.
None of us can say to another, I will not care for you, for we are connected
like muscle and bone.
If
one suffers, we all suffer. If one rejoices, we all rejoice.
Of you.
Thanks be to God, who in Christ made us one.
Let us worship
God.
So our scripture reading today is a little bit of a longer one, but one that should be familiar to quite a few of us. It comes from Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12. And we're going to be reading the entire chapter. I'm going to be reading it from the New Revised Standard Version. And in this passage, we hear about our being members of the body of Christ and the gifts that we have as members of the body of Christ. Now, concerning spiritual gifts, siblings, I do not want you to be uninformed. You know that you were enticed and led astray to idols that could not speak. And so therefore, I want you to understand that no one speaking by the Spirit of God ever says, let Jesus be cursed. And no one can say Jesus is Lord except by the Holy Spirit. Now there are varieties of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of services, but the same Lord. And there are varieties of activities, but it is the same God who activates all of them in everyone. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. To one is given through the Spirit the utterance of wisdom, and to another the utterance of knowledge according to the same Spirit. To another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by the one Spirit, to another the works of miracles, to another prophecy, to another the discernment of spirits, to another various kinds of tongues, and to another the interpretation of tongues. All these are activated by one and the same Spirit, who allots to each one individually, just as the Spirit chooses. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot would say, because I am not a hand, I don't belong to the body, that wouldn't make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear would say, because I am not an eye, I don't belong to the body, that wouldn't make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as God chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And those members of the body that we think less honorable, we clothe with greater honor, and our less respectable members are treated with greater respect. Whereas our more respectable members do not need this. But God has so arranged the body, giving the greater honor to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, but the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. So now you are the members, you are the body of Christ, and individually members of it. And God has appointed in the church apostles, prophets, teachers, then deeds of power, then gifts of healing, forms of assistance, forms of leadership, various kinds of tongues. Are all apostles? Are all prophets? Are all teachers? Do all work miracles? Do all speak tongues? Do all interpret? But strive for the greater gifts, and I will show you a still more excellent way. Hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. Thanks be to God. So we are many individual members of faith communities, of this regional council, of the body of Christ. We are connected here this morning through the work of the Holy Spirit, assisted by the wonders of technology, though we all know technology is a wonder until it ain't. In this wonderful connection, this holy mystery of faith and community, we are blessed to know this community and are called and challenged to serve within it. To know and love and serve in this ever-expanding circle of community, we need to ground ourselves in our relationship with God and how God nurtures and inspires us. By taking time to ground ourselves, we're reminded that we do not just gather for a meeting, but we gather in the presence of God. And by taking time to ground ourselves, we are reminded that each member, each one of us, has a unique relationship to God through Christ, and that each one of us has something to contribute and to take from this gathering. Whether you envision yourself as a hand, a heart, an eye, a mouth, a foot, or whatever else in the body of Christ, you are connected, you are valued, and your actions impact the rest of the body. And so to do some of this grounding today, before we get into the work that we are called to do, we're going to use an old style of body prayer. This particular prayer is attributed to Julian of Norwich. And to be honest, we're not sure if that was her actual name or whether it's in reference to the church that she was associated with, St. Julian's Church in Norwich, England. Julian lived in the 14th century as an anchoress, someone who dedicated themselves to a life of prayer and reflection by cutting themselves off from the outside world and living in a secluded room attached to the church building. She spent her life praying, writing, and offering spiritual support to visitors. She was a theologian and visionary in her own right, and her writings have been influential in Christian thought and prayer for centuries. And so this body prayer that Julian of Norwich developed is a series of 4 hand movements, which I've adapted slightly for this exercise. And this type of prayer can be done just once through. It can be done repetitively. It can be done as an individual or in a group like we're doing. And I want to stress as we go into this time of prayer, I will be demonstrating and explaining the hand actions that I'm doing, but please feel free to adapt or change the poses as you see fit. If you need to stand up at any point for a bit of a stretch during it, please feel free to do so. So with each hand movement and pose, I'll offer a bit of a prompt. Then we'll have a few moments of silent prayer, and then we'll have a bit of a sung response that hopefully will be familiar to folks. You'll get the hang of it, don't worry. So we're going to be starting with making sure that our feet are planted on the floor. Or if you're like me and sitting on a stool and can't reach the floor right now, that your feet are planted on your footrest. If you aren't able to do so, just find some other way to make sure that you feel grounded in the space that you're in, whether it be adjusting in your seat or even just noticing the space around you and ignoring the cleaning that you meant to do this morning before the meeting started. I invite us all to take a couple of deep breaths together just to start grounding ourselves. Know that you are a member of Christ's body, living and serving in God's good world. You are grounded by the earth beneath your feet, the air that you breathe, and the space that you inhabit. Know that God's presence is with you in this space, both virtually on this call and enveloping you and creation in an embrace of love and grace. So we start with the first movement in Julian's prayer, and it is the await pose. For this, I invite you, if you're able, to put your arms to your side, and you can cup your hands facing up towards you, and you can either place it in your lap or on the table or desk in front of you, however it feels most comfortable for you. In this pose, we await and anticipate the presence of God, not as we hope or expect, but just to await God in this moment. While we have ideas of how we move with God through the course of this time together, we recognize that it's God who's really the mover and shaker in this relationship. So I invite us to take a few moments of silent reflection to consider the expectations, hopes, anxieties, perhaps dreads that you might have entering this time together. Pray for God's help to let go of those things that might keep us from faithfully engaging and just be open to what will be. We do this in a time of silent reflection. Please join together with me in singing. Lord, listen to your children praying. Lord, send your spirit in this place. Lord, listen to your children praying. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. The second movement is the allow prayer. For this, I invite you, if you're able, to raise your arms and with your hands open, reach towards the sky. If you can't keep your arms in the air, you can have your arms on either side of you with your elbows bent like this, with your hands kind of by your shoulders, or again on the table or desk in front of you if you feel need to. If you want to look like you're celebrating a touchdown, please feel free to do so as well. In this pose, we open ourselves to the presence of God and to others. At times, we might feel too vulnerable or unworthy to be embraced by God, or feel too busy or unsure to accept what God's presence and will might do in our lives. But God allays such fears, assuring us, as disruptive or unexpected as God's presence might be, it enters into our lives in ways of love, compassion, and justice. And it opens us up to all the other members of the body of Christ around us. So take a few moments. If you can keep your hands in the air, you can. If you need to lower your arms, that's all right too. And to just sit and open yourself up to God's presence and how God might be rushing into your life today through the course of this meeting. So we take a few moments of silent reflection to open ourselves up to God. Lord, listen to your children praying. Lord, send your spirit in this place. Lord, listen to your children praying. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. The third movement is the accept prayer. For this, I invite you to bring your arms in, crossing yourself, with your hands over your heart. Alternatively, if you feel like you need it today, you can just kind of give yourself a bit of a hug if need be, or however you want to embrace your heart and soul. Acceptance in faith can be one of the hardest things to do. Either acceptance of who we are as members of Christ's body, or the acceptance of others in Christ's body. We sometimes wish that we were hands instead of feet, ears instead of eyes, or that the mouth next to us might put a sock in it once in a while. But God's love and ability to inspire community makes us realize that our gifts, as well as those of others, are integral to the work of Christ. God inspires us to accept care and compassion from God and from others. So now we take a few moments, either with our hands on our hearts or embracing ourselves, to pray for acceptance, the acceptance of ourselves and the acceptance of others here, trusting in God's expansive love. We do this in a time of silent reflection. Lord, listen to your children praying. Lord, send your spirit in this place. Lord, listen to your children praying. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. And our fourth and final movement is the attend prayer. And for this, I invite you to stretch out your arms in front of you with your hands either open with palms up or with your hands held together in an embrace, whichever is most comfortable for you. And again, if you'd rather your arms on the table or desk in front of you or closer to you, please do however feels most comfortable for you. We are called to be spurred on by God's presence to live out the body of Christ in the world. We remember that our actions have impacts that reach wide and deep, both the actions we take here today as a region and the actions we take as individuals. Knowing how much our work impacts those around us, we pray that God uses it in ways that foster community, inclusion, and mercy. So let us finally take a few moments to pray for God's wisdom and guidance today in the actions that we do and plan as a regional council. We do this in a moment of silent reflection. Lord, listen to your children praying. Lord, send your spirit in this place. Lord, listen to your children praying. Send us love, send us power, send us grace. As we move from hand motions to proposal motions and silence to small groups, let our prayers continue for God's love and wisdom, and let us continue to uplift one another as members of Christ's body. Thank you for being vulnerable with me and trying out this exercise, and hopefully your arms got a bit more of a workout than the usual lifting up your coffee mug that normally happens on these meetings. We continue with our next hymn, which is God's Love Ever Widening. These lyrics will be new to you, but the tune should hopefully be familiar.
Yes.
Let us pray. Gracious God, as we come before you today to discuss important matters, we ask for your guidance and wisdom. You are the source of all knowledge and understanding. Therefore, we seek your direction in our decision-making process. In all we say, do, and think, may we remember that we are one with you through Christ Jesus. As members of Christ's body, let us listen deeply to one another with open hearts and minds. May we not be quick to judge or criticize, but instead seek to understand different perspectives. Guide us and turn us from the judgment so prevalent in today's world to the wonder of your ways as members of your kingdom. We pray that you will give us the discernment to make the best decisions for the greater good as we determine together your will for this region within the larger body of the United Church of Canada. Help us to listen attentively to one another and ground us in your love and calling for deep spirituality, bold discipleship, and daring justice within this your body. We trust that you will guide us on this path and lead us to reach decisions that reflect your will. May our words and actions be guided by your love and grace. In your mighty name we pray. Amen. And as a sung benediction, let's draw the circle wide.
Thank you so much to our worship team for putting together that centering and grounding worship experience. I know it wasn't explicitly stated in the agenda that's in the workbook, but we have some time now to do some community building, which will take place in breakout rooms of 5 or 6 people. But before we go into the breakout rooms, I wanted to invite those of you who are joining for your very first Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council meeting this morning to take this opportunity to introduce yourself to all of us. How are we going to do this in an orderly fashion, you wonder? Well, I'm going to ask brand new participants to use the raise your hand feature so that we can welcome you. When I acknowledge you, I will invite you to unmute yourself and tell us who you are, your preferred pronouns, and what church community or communities you are representing here today. Now, if the thought of turning on your camera and talking in front of everyone is not your idea of a good time, feel free not to do this. This isn't like an introduce yourself or die event, but you could also, if you want to be acknowledged but just don't feel comfortable speaking, I can acknowledge you and you can write your name in the chat and where you're joining from this morning. And then just to be clear, if you want to, we'll just leave some space after you put your name in the chat. And then if you want to welcome those newcomers who are introducing themselves now, either out loud, unmuted, or in the chat, I just invite you to do that by private message instead of a message to everyone saying, welcome, 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 or while we're talking, that's all the screen readers will be chatting back to people. So private message only in the chat, except for this one invitation where if you are too shy to introduce yourself out loud and on camera in this moment for that purpose. Okay, so is there anybody who is here for their very first Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council meeting? Please raise your hand. Okay, yep, Dan.
Good morning. I'm Dan Lever, and I'm at Port Elgin United Church, the minister there, and I've been there since July 1st. This is my my first call, what we used to call settlement, but it's not settlement, so I don't know what the best way to call it is.
That's awesome. Welcome. I see that Ayla has her hand up.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ayla, she slash her, and I am from the Westminster United Church in Waterloo. I'm their regional council rep, and this is my first meeting, and it's going really well so far.
Awesome. Welcome, Ayla. Next, we have Lori. Oh, you're muted. There. Can you help Lori get unmuted, Michelle, at all?
Lori, you can check just right at the bottom of your screen on the left-hand corner. If you hover your mouse, there you go, you unmuted. Try it again. Try it one more time. Left-hand corner.
It did it for a second.
Yeah,
We'll come back to you, Lori.
Yeah. Okay, let me get, okay.
Okay, Susan?
So is it Sue Hertel you're looking at?
No, there's another Susan highlighted. It just says Susan.
Oh, that's me.
That's you.
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
My name's Susan Balfour. I don't know how my last name disappeared off the screen, but I'll try to figure that out at some point in time. Identify as she, her, and I'm representing Trillium United Church in Cambridge.
Wonderful. Welcome, Susan. Okay, Susan Hertel, I see you have your hand up. So there you go. Thanks, Michelle.
Can't make that other hand work.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm Sue Hertel. I've just begun working with Clifford Pastoral Charge and pronouns she, her.
Wonderful. Welcome. And someone used the chat in a very efficient way to introduce themselves in a direct message to me, and that works too because then I can introduce them and say their name out loud. So Kathy Duggan, she, her, from Drayton United Church, and she has been their rep since September 15th. So welcome, Kathy. Judy, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to unmute and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm with Trinity United Church in Listowel. I came here from BC a couple of years ago, and I joined this church. And I was elected in February of this year. So this is the first Zoom meeting I've been on for this. So I'm looking forward. I'm taking notes here, so I'm looking forward to this.
Wonderful. Thank you, Judy. Okay, well, I don't see anybody else's hands up. Nobody else direct messaged me to introduce them, so that's just wonderful. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. You did such a good job of introducing yourself, and good job to everybody else in the meeting for not immediately flooding the chat with welcomes and everything. Oh, right, I forgot we're going to come back to Lori. So we'll do that now.
That's okay. I
Oh,
figured
yay!
out.
And
I
we got it
figured out.
fixed.
Lori Campbell, she, her. I am at Mount Forest and Woodland, have been there since the 15th of June, and happy to be here this morning.
Yay, wonderful, Lori. Thank you for putting your head back up and reminding me that your the tech didn't work, and then it did. Yay, so we're doing great. Wonderful. So welcome, and welcome to everyone who is here for obviously not your first meeting. And so we continue to work together. So as you may know, or maybe you don't know, in June of 2025, the United Church of Canada will celebrate their 100th anniversary. And there are so many things throughout our history that we can be proud of. And so I wanted to invite you during this breakout time to share something you love about this United Church of ours. And then take some time to share what, if anything, your community of faith, pastoral charge, cluster area is planning as a 100th anniversary celebration. And I'm going to invite that these prompts of what I want you to talk about in your breakout rooms be put in the chat. So actually, I'm going to put them in the chat so that they'll be in the chat for the breakout rooms. So first, what you love, something you love about the United Church of Canada. Okay, I'm putting that in now. And then I'm going to just leave a second for the screen reader to read it. And then I'm going to invite you to talk about in your breakout rooms anything planned that you have planned for the 100th anniversary. Okay. I'm going to put that in the chat. I should have put a question mark at the end of that. Anything planned? So we're going to move into breakout rooms, and we're going to have 15 minutes in breakout rooms. And I invite you just to be conscious of sharing that space and allowing for everyone to have a chance to talk. And if you have any great ideas that come up in that breakout room, to just keep those in mind to be shared back with us. Okay. Okay. We're just going to give
Mark,
a
don't
few
blow your nose.
moments for everyone to come back in from their breakout rooms, and then we're going to make sure everybody gets muted again after getting to unmute and actually talk at our meeting, which is always such a good time. And then once we get everybody back and I get the nod from our tech team. Oh, I've already got a thumbs up. So everybody's back. Wonderful. Welcome back from your time in breakout rooms. I hope you found that time useful in getting to know one another a little bit better and reminding us of our connections to one another and the wider church. If you came up with an idea for a region-wide anniversary celebration, you're invited to share them with Ann Harbridge, who's part of our anniversary committee. And I think is here today, so you could just private message her if you came up with an idea. Please stay tuned for how you might be able to participate in a Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council promotional video that we're going to be creating to be shown alongside the videos created by each of the other regional councils. I'm like a little bit competitive, so ours will be the best. And just a reminder of our 100th anniversary puzzle project. If you haven't got a puzzle piece yet, you don't know what I'm talking about, you're interested in finding out more, I'm going to invite you to private message our President-elect Rebecca Duncan. And if you don't know how to private message in Zoom, then Rebecca's email was in the chat earlier, and it's RebeccaJane73@gmail.com. And you can just email her if you're like, I don't have a puzzle piece, or what puzzle piece, anything like that. Just direct your questions there. We're going to just hear one little bit from our Congregational Support Commission, whose report you can find on page 14 of the workbook. I want to thank the Congregational Support Commission in advance, since we're already about half an hour behind, for yielding the bulk of their time to afford us more time for the proposals before us today. But I think they just wanted to highlight one thing that they're working on. And I think probably Ann Harbridge, the chair of that commission, is going to be the one to spotlight.
Yeah, I'll just speak to it very briefly, actually. One of the things that we have started recently, fairly recently, is to find opportunities for the regional reps who have been elected by your congregations to gather. Because we're such a big region, we don't have many opportunities to get together, to share ideas, to share ask questions, that kind of thing. So John Neff, once a month, is hosting a regional reps gathering. And you'll see information about it in your newsletter on a regular basis. So keep an eye out for that. And be sure to sign up, because it's a really valuable Q&A time and just an opportunity to get to know one another a little bit. So that's really all I wanted to share at this point.
Thank you so much, Ann. And thank you again to the Congregational Support Commission for yielding the bulk of your time on the agenda today for our other work that comes before us. As a community, as we have just experienced being, even while we were broken apart into breakout rooms, we came together. And as a community, we acknowledge those communities of faith that have closed, changed, or are collaborating with those around them. And we also acknowledge those whom we are missing from our community in this next presentation.
Community of Faith Life Cycle Changes. Disbandments, with thanks for their legacy and faithful service. Blue Vale United Church, ceased to worship June 30th, 2024. Many blessings as the legacy of this community of faith continues in the United Church. Collaborative agreements, a powerful testament to the strength of collective faith and the promise of greater impact. St. John's United Church, Chelsea and Tara United Church, beginning September 1st, 2024. Emmanuel United Church, First United Church, Parkminster United Church, and Westminster United Church, all in Waterloo. Youth Program, June 19th, 2024. Wingham United Church, and Knox United Church in Belgrave, beginning May 2024.
May these partnerships foster deeper connections, enrich your collective missions, and inspire positive change in your communities. Blessings on this exciting journey ahead.
In Memoriam. We remember and honor the lives of those who have departed from us. Their contributions and presence have left an indelible mark on our community. We remember them and celebrate the legacy that they left behind. Ruth Long, CDM. Ruth Long of Atwood passed away on October 31st, 2024 at the age of 78. After successful careers in sales and business ownership, Ruth spent many years as a lay minister in the United Church. She was happiest serving her community, church, and family. We are deeply grateful for the faithful service and unwavering dedication of Ruth, whose legacy of love, guidance, and compassion continues to inspire all who knew her. The Reverend David Black. Reverend David Black passed away peacefully on January 2nd, 2024 at the age of 81. David was a retired United Church minister, serving the congregations of Streetsville, Lynaditch, Annan Woodford, Westway, Newtonville, Kendall, and Shiloh, Harriston, Wasaga Beach, Calgary, Corunna, and Ebenezer United Churches. David was also a volunteer police chaplain to the OPP for approximately 30 years. He was a lifelong learner, passionate for social justice, and loved convertibles, dinner parties with friends, and a good gospel concert. The Very Reverend, the Honorable Dr. Lois M. Wilson. Reverend Wilson died in hospital in Fredericton, New Brunswick, September 13th, 2024. She was 97 years old. A formidable advocate of social justice and peace, she worked with prodigious energy and irrepressible spirit in pursuit of common good. She served as moderator of the United Church of Canada, president of the Canadian Council of Churches, president of the World Council of Churches, independent member of the Senate of Canada, special envoy to Sudan, member of Canada's Nuclear Waste Environmental Assessment Panel, chancellor of Lakehead University, and in great many other capacities locally and globally. She was deeply devoted to making real change through and in the church and community. Her faith drove her actions, and she remained involved in the work of the church right until the end. Reverend Brenda Fox. Reverend Brenda died suddenly on September 20th, 2024 at the age of 53. Brenda served the congregation of Wilson Heights United Church in East Vancouver for many years, followed by Dunbar Heights United. She was the director of field education at the Vancouver School of Theology for over 8 years. At the time of her death, she was working for the National Church as the vocational minister for the Pacific Mountain and Chinook Winds regions. Her impact on the lives of her family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, students, and congregants will be remembered and forever cherished. The Honorable Murray Sinclair. The Honorable Murray Sinclair, a distinguished Canadian judge, lawyer, and former chair of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, passed away on November 4th, 2024. A member of the Manitoba Métis community, Sinclair was a trailblazer for Indigenous rights and a passionate advocate for justice. As the first Indigenous judge appointed to the Manitoba Court of Queen's Bench in 1988, his legacy includes groundbreaking work in advancing Indigenous issues, particularly in the context of Canada's troubled history with residential schools. His leadership of the TRC, where he helped guide the national conversation on reconciliation, was a pivotal moment in Canadian history. Sinclair's contributions to law, human rights, and reconciliation continue to inspire generations, and he will be remembered for his dedication to truth, justice, and healing. May we find comfort in the memories of Ruth, David, Lois, Brenda, and Murray, and may their spirits continue to inspire us in our journey ahead.
Let us continue our remembering as we take a 5-minute break. We'll stretch, grab a snack, walk a dog, make a quick phone call, or whatever it is you might need to do at this moment in your day. I will see you back in about 5 minutes. On my computer, it is 11:07 now, so that puts us at 11:12 to come back and rejoin, where we'll get a chance to talk about finances. Yay! That was fun. It's at 0, so I'm just going to start talking. I can see people like who've got their cameras on. It's so sweet to see people as they come back and they're like still eating. They're like, that was not long enough. But the dedication to not want to miss 1 second of the financial reports is impressive. So good on everybody who made it back in such a timely fashion. I'm going to invite our tech team to spotlight Brent Kaslik now, and he's going to present the financial report and budget. If you're wondering where it is in the workbook, it's pages 21 to 25. And there's a couple proposals with that, or one. There he is.
There I am. Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure the best way of doing this, whether people have had a chance to take a look at the audited financial statements. I'll give a chance for people to ask questions at this point. Since you've had the information in front of you, are there any questions that need to be answered from the audited report?
Okay, so if you do have a question, again, you can use your raise your hand feature. And if for some reason that isn't working for you, you can just wave your hand frantically. We'll try to find you. Or you could private message one of our tech support, John or Michelle. Okay, I see Andrea.
I don't have a question so much as I wondered, Brent, do you think you'd be able to give a really brief synopsis about this report, just for those who either didn't really understand what they were looking at or were unable to read it?
Andrea, do you mean in regards to the audited report?
Sorry, I guess it was really sort of a blanket about all of the reports more.
Okay. So if we want to look at the audited report, the auditors are basically reporting on their results. They've reviewed the accounting that was done, generally that's done at the general counsel's offices. And so they have reported, done an audited report. In that audited report, they do a statement of financial position, which is formally called the balance sheet, which at December 31st, 2023 states balances that were there at that point in time. So in that statement of financial position, it lists your assets, which mainly are cash and receivables, and your investments. At the same time, they also list any liabilities and fund balances as at the end of December. So at the end of December 31st, 23, we had total assets of $6,514 million compared to 2022, which were $6,781,205, down a couple 100,000, not significant enough to make any changes or comments on. The next page of the financial statement is the statement of operations, and this sheet tells you what has happened during the year, the 12 months ending December 31st, 23. It is broken up into 3 different funds. One is the operating fund, which we will be talking shortly about in regards to the budget. The other is restricted funds. These are funds that come out of either internally or external restricted funds, and include our monies that we have at PTCC in Toronto. And also the property funds, monies that have come in from the sale or disbandment of properties over the years. but in this case, in the year 2023. And then your grand total operations and expenses. So totally, including operating, restricted, and property, we had income of $1,095,000 compared to the year before, $2,494,000. The main change in that is there was, I believe, some funds from churches that were sold in 2022 that were late getting into the books and came into 2023, or sorry, were late in 2021 that came into 2022. That's why the revenue is higher in 2022 compared to 2023. Our operating expenses for 2023 totaled $1,034,000, where the year before it was $1,939,000. Again, it has to do with late entries or entries being made for sale of properties and monies being transferred to either the United Church Mission and Service or to the Indigenous funds that we transfer a percentage to out of sales of churches. So in the end, in 2023, we had a net revenue of $413,000 compared to the year before, $275,161. There is a statement of changes in fund balances. That's your third statement. Again, it's broken out by the three different sources: your operating funds, your restricted, and your property, and the grand total of all of those three added together. So at the end of 2023, we had fund balances totaling $6,364,000 versus the year before $5,951,000. There is a Schedule 1 that lists the different restricted funds, and I won't go through that because it takes a few moments to kind of go through it, and it's very detailed and can become very confusing in such a large group. I think I'd lose a lot of you. And the last report is the statement of cash flows. And that statement basically is just trying to explain where the cash came from during the year, what we used it on, and gives the fund balances or the cash at the end of the year, which again, it looks dramatic from 2022, but it's the change in monies that are going on at year end between one year and the other year, where we're transferring monies to the United Church Mission and Service or to the Indigenous funds. Just didn't happen at the right time. So at 2023, I believe everything was done correctly. And so our cash was at $428,401 compared to the year before, which was $1,416,000. That's just a quick synopsis of the statement. I don't know if it's helpful or not, Andrea. It may be more confusing than helpful.
So that's the auditor's report that you were just talking about, Brent, that we're receiving as part, like when we have the motion, that will be one of the things that we receive the auditor's report. So if you've had a chance to read it through, you were wondering if there was any questions in terms of what's within that auditor's report that we're receiving for information.
That's correct.
Okay, I see Gary has his hand up. He's our parliamentarian.
Just wanted to be clear that the building fund is right now standing at $1.23191. That's the amount.
That is money, Gary. Yes, that is the net result of property that has been, or churches that have been sold and has come into the church.
The reason and because there's several proposals that talk about, I think that's the money we're talking about.
That is correct, Gary. You are correct.
Okay.
I must also tell, this is the net amount. There have been some expenses taken out of the property fund. For example, there's a little bit of salaries that are taken out of the property fund to cover some of the social justice and discipleship. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. So that was Gary Clark, our parliamentarian. And I'll just remind you, if I recognize you, to introduce yourself and say where you're joining us from before you speak. Norm, I see your hand is up.
Gary, if I recall correctly, sorry, Gary.
It doesn't matter, Norm. I'm called either one. Even my first cousins don't know my first name is Gary.
I think Norm's just trying to introduce himself now.
Okay, I'm Norm from Mount Forest Pastoral Charge.
Yes.
And the one thing I recall hearing quite a few times in the last number of meetings is your frustration about the auditors not having reports ready, and they were really struggling with, getting that ball rolling. But now you're referring to the 2023. So have the previous ones been fully done and now we're constructively moving forward?
Yes, Norm, all the previous audits have been completed. There was some slowness in regards to staffing and stuff for the auditors, and it took longer to do the audits for 20, 21, and 22. That's all been done. It's completed. Everything is fine. The 2023 was a little bit longer than we anticipated. It was a change in auditors from the former PwC to the new auditors. But everything is completed at this point.
And those previous audits that were slow and we weren't able to receive at a full meeting were received by the executive of Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council, for everyone who was wondering how those got received.
Correct.
As I
President
was.
Jennifer, it's John Neff, Tech Support. I've got a request, private request in the chat to see if it's possible to screen share this info. I'm happy to do that if Brent will direct me as to where we need to go.
Not this auditor's report. I don't think it's easy enough to share in this space, and we're just receiving it. We don't really have a say in it per se, but it just gives us some information about what our financial system position is as we go into looking at the budget for 2025. Kathy.
I'm just wondering if we're just receiving it, but for the person who hasn't been able to access it, I wonder if we could send them a different link or a hard copy, if John could consult with them what their issue around that is, and if we could get them the information.
Sounds good. We can definitely do that. We can make sure that everyone has the information that's contained in that auditor's report. Okay, are there any other questions for Brent around the auditor's report? Anne, I'll recognize you.
Sorry, it's not a question, but maybe this would help others. I had trouble accessing the report through the link, but if you copy and paste the link into your browser, it opened fine for me. So that might help some others who can't open it through the link.
Okay, and that was Anne Harbridge, chair of our Congregational Support Commission. Anytime.
Unfortunately, I didn't try doing that because I have a hard copy of the financial statement, so I didn't go into trying to copy it. So,
and I didn't click the link because I didn't want to. I trust the wisdom of the court and those who care enough to read reports like that to know what is the right thing to ask and to do. Okay, Brent, do you want to carry on?
We will move forward then to the budget and to receive the September internal operating statement as of the end of September. John, I don't know if you're able to share screen the budget pages. If you can, that would be wonderful. Just makes it easier to look at. There we go. Thank you, John. So in front of us, we have the income. And this report allows us to see the 24 budget and the September 30th actual numbers and what we're proposing for the 2025 budget. The total near the bottom of your screen for 2024 was 817,000. The September 30th is 709,996, and the budget that I'm proposing is 843,288. Most of our income comes from the assessments from the United Church of Canada. As you'll see, the assessments are 325 all the way across for 24 and 25. The mission and service 180. September we've spent 180,000, and the 2025 budget is 180,000. Salary support 68,000 for 2024, and for 2025 69,707, and you can see what happened up to the end of September. Other grants are, these are monies that are coming in that we get granted for the archives. There's some information on that. It hasn't changed. Other revenue in 2020 in September of 30th, 24,827. Someone will ask what that is. That was money that we paid, or the registers paid for the tri-regional for our meals in September. PTCC grant is money that we have the opportunity of pulling out of PTC from earnings. Last year, we budgeted 60,000. We've already removed, as of the end of September, 70,000. And we know that we have the opportunity of having 82,000 come in from PTC in 2025. Property fund. This is money that's being transferred out of the property fund to help cover some of the salaries for social justice. Investment income. We budgeted last year 55. To date, at the end of September, we've earned about 69,000. Being a little cautious for 2025, put in 55,000. And other transfers are monies that have come out of either our restricted funds, this coming in, so it's cash. This is a cash budget showing what's coming in. So last year, we budgeted 89,000. Up to the end of September, it's been 25,408. Most of that money, that 25,408, has come in to be out of the discipleship from some of the restricted funds. And we're budgeting 91,000 for 2025. Total income, as I said, 817 for 2024, 2025, 843.
Okay, so I appreciate you doing the income like that, itemized out. Can we just do for the expenses, just if there was something to highlight, Brent, and otherwise just sort of like the final amount, and just for the for those who are gathered here for this full meeting, this budget has also been discussed and at the executive level. And so we've had an opportunity to look at some of these numbers, and now we're inviting you the opportunity to give feedback if there's something that you think we've missed as an executive in terms of our budgeting for 2025.
Yes, thank you, Jen, for reminding me. So the next, just moving down, John, the screen up, then it's broken down into the different operations, and you can see that for the regional operations. Communities of faith, pastoral relations, connecting, communication, social justice, faith formation. The chaplaincy is under mission and service grants, which is on the bottom. Right relations and emerging ministry. Those are normally section J of the manual. There's only been a small amount paid up to September. Office administrations, your building expenses, and your mission and support grants. Total 2024 budget was 867. Up to September, we've incurred 604, budgeting 884, 319 for 2025. The negative deficit will be 50,402 was for 2024. At the end of September, we are in a positive of 105,000, and we're budgeting for 2025 a deficit of 41,031, which will come out of your operating reserve. I'll leave that for the moment for any questions.
So any questions for clarification around the budget? Okay. So we have an actual proposal. The finance proposal budget, which is proposal 2 on page 21 of the workbook. Okay, and so the financial proposal budget 2025, the issue is transparency and accountability are key elements of financial management in any charity. It's important that the regional council is guided by these principles and models these practices for the communities of faith within its bounds. And the regional council needs to understand both the strength and challenges of its financial situation to be able to function effectively in the present and to ensure it is well positioned for the future. Establishing a budget for 2025 is one step in this process and will guide the executive in its management of regional council resources. So we are proposing with this proposal that we receive the internal 2024 operating statement to date for information, receive the 2023 auditor's report, endorse the following principles for the 2025 budget. A, that operating expenses increased by 4.5% for inflation. B, prioritize mission support grants. 4, appoint KPMG LLP as auditors for the 2024 financial year. And 5, adopt the proposed 2025 budget that Brent just went through, authorizing the executive to adapt as necessary within the above guidelines. Do we have any questions for clarification around that proposal, what we're proposing as a whole, before it's actually moved and seconded? Bruce.
Bruce Dixon, Dublin Street United Church in Guelph. And Brent, thanks for your good work on the budget and to the executive for their work on that. Just wanted to ask about your assumption of 4.5% for inflation. Is that a church figure as a United Church as a whole operating for 4.5? I mean, it's hard to gauge what inflation will be. We've come out of a high rate and now I know it's slipping back down to under 3 again. So just curious about how you came up with 4.5. Is that a figure we should be using for our own church budgets? Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. The 4.5 is basically, we looked at it at the executive and felt we'd use the same rate as we did the year before, not really knowing what the actual inflation rate will end up in 2025. So we just use the 4.5, similar as the year before.
Mark says he can speak to that as well.
Hi, so this is Executive Minister Mark. So part of the reason also, Bruce, that we use 4.5 is on a recommendation from our financial advisors that if we use 4.5 every year, some years it will be low, some years it will be high, but over the long run, it should even out. So that is also a reason for using that number.
Also, just to add to that, I believe that the salary increases for 2025 for general council staff is about 2.5, and for ministry staff, it went up to 3. But that's my understanding. I could be corrected on that.
That's right, Mark says. Thank you for that question, Bruce. Are there any other questions for clarification? Does anyone have any additions or changes they would like to make to this proposal? Okay, then I'm ready for a mover and a seconder. Brent is.
Sorry, Jen.
No problem.
I will move that Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council receive the internal report, operating report as of the end of September, receive the auditor's report as of the end of December 31st, 23, endorse the following principles of operating increase by 4.5 for inflation, prioritize mission and service grants, appoint KPMG as the auditors for 2024, and adopt the proposal 2025 budget authorizing the executive to adapt as necessary within the above guidelines.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Terry Smith is going to second that motion. Is there any debate? Okay, so just a reminder I didn't even look at the chat because we're not using it for questions. If you do have a question, just raise your hand. And please don't use the chat because anybody who's using a screen reader, and we have someone today who is blind and needs a screen reader, will have your text in a chat be read over top of my voice as I'm saying. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and ask that question and we can address it. The question in the chat was seen and answered in the chat. So we'll try to keep that to a minimum moving forward. Okay, so not to distract, is there any other debate around this proposal? That would have been a good question for clarification maybe during the budget talk. All right. Okay, so I'm going to call for the vote. And so again, we're voting on receiving the internal 2024 operating statement for info. Sorry. That motion is carried. Thank you, Brent, for presenting our proposal around our budget. And thank you all for your faithful consideration of that work. Just to break up the financial discussions, I thought we'd take a moment to watch a stewardship video prepared by Brenna Baker, our community of faith stewardship support for our regional council.
Hello, friends. My name is Brenna Baker, and I'm the Community of Faith Stewardship Support staff for our 3 Southwest Ontario regions. I want to start my time today by inviting you to think about something you've accomplished in your life that you feel really proud of. Maybe it was earning that degree or finishing a big project at work. Perhaps you're thinking of social justice issues that you've been involved with, which have helped to change hearts and minds. Or maybe you just raised a really great kid. Whatever it is, did that accomplishment take time, months, years, decades even? Did you have to struggle and learn and make mistakes? Did you have to rely on others for collaboration and support? Did your perspectives and ideas change along the way? Often when people approach our team for stewardship support, they want some quick tips or easy ideas to implement right away. But what they soon discover is that creating an ongoing culture of generosity and an abundance mindset takes a lot of time, a lot of dedication, prayer, trial and error, and teamwork. Deepening generosity, like any other aspect of discipleship, is a lifelong pursuit. But we know that those things in our lives that are the most meaningful, most transformative, are the ones that come with a cost, the ones that ask a lot of us. So you might be thinking, well, that's great and all, but we can't start our stewardship work without a minister, or we can't start without a team. And even though I'm interested, who else would join me? Or, well, we definitely can't start in the fall when things are so busy. There's a wisdom saying that goes something like, if you want shade, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. But the next best time is right now. If you want to see your congregation deepen generosity so that you can continue to do God's ministry into the future, the best time to start is today. And here are 2 best first steps you can take. First, reach out to me. Let's just have a half-hour phone or Zoom call. I will listen lovingly to all of your concerns. But then I will tell you that you can do this. And more than that, that you need to do this. There are people right now in your little corner of the world that need to know God's love through your community of faith. It's not about preserving your building for 100 more years. That's not what we're doing. It is about being Christ's hands and feet right now and ensuring that you have the resources to do so. But don't take my word for it. If you aren't sure, let me know and I can put you in touch with a nearby community of faith that has done our program. Hear directly from them their own stories of transformation in this stewardship journey. And the second best step after you call me, the next best first step, is to sign up for Getting Started in Stewardship. This is our overview course. It goes through our approach to stewardship, and it's offered many times throughout the year on the ChurchX platform. You also get to meet with other folks from across the whole country for support and peer learning. You are not alone. Sign up for a Getting Started course, and then together we'll work on the next steps for your community of faith. Friends, committing to the hard work of stewardship and generosity is already making an impact in our regions. One way we tangibly see the impact of generosity is through the ministries that support mission support grants from our discipleship and justice commissions. These mission and service funded grants mean that the mission and service offerings you make each Sunday go toward funding the vital and creative ministries of your United Church neighbors down the road. Or maybe you are a recipient of a grant. Here are some of the grant recipients from last year in Horseshoe Falls.
Brock and McMaster Campus Ministry, Wesley Urban Ministries, Five Oaks, Delta.
Here are some of the grant recipients from Antler River Watershed.
Sorry, I was going to get John to pause the video.
Is all friends committing.
Thanks, John. Brock and McMaster Campus Ministry, Wesley Urban Ministries, Five Oaks, Delta United Edith's Pantry and Sunday School Coordinator, Cave Springs Camp, Faith United Meals of Hope, Silver Spire Queer Kids Bible Camp, Shower Program.
The grant recipients from Antler River Watershed.
London Community Chaplaincy, East London UC Outreach Cluster, Windsor Downtown Mission, Camp Chemo Key, Canacere Camp, Lambton Presbytery UC Center, Pierce Williams UC Center, Ridgetown Campus Chaplaincy.
And here are some of the recipients from Western Ontario Waterways.
The Hub Community Center, Grey Bruce Health Services, Guelph Ecumenical Campus Ministry, Westminster United Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Ministry, Christian Resource Center for Huron-Perth, Grand River Resources, Camp Bimini, Camp Manassatung.
In total, $425,000 was granted to these communities of faith and other church organizations to share God's love with neighbors in our regions. Thank you for your generosity. So, why not get out your metaphorical shovels to plant a stewardship tree today? Get in touch with me, sign up for Getting Started in Stewardship, and take the first step in your journey of deepening generosity. Your future selves will thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to invite Mark to present the financial proposals 3, 4, and 5 on pages 26 to 29 of your workbook.
Thank you so much, President Jennifer. Executive Minister Mark speaking. So we have some proposals that we're going to look at. We might not get a chance to look at all three right now. One might have to get pushed to unfinished business later in the day to make sure that we do get a lunch break, but we will do our best. So these proposals, if you can take that down just for a second, John, sorry, I'm going to give just a very quick preamble. All three of these proposals have the same what is the issue and why is this issue important? So I'm just going to talk about that very briefly right now because it is the same for all three. So the issue is when congregations disband and sell their property, a portion of those proceeds come to the regional council to be used to enable it to provide ongoing support and resources to communities of faith and for new church development. The issue is that the statement is vague. It's vague enough to be able to do a lot of things, but it's also vague enough that it becomes challenging to act upon it. And so this is important because as a regional council, we want to honor the legacy of those who have paved the way before us and to be able to continue to help serve active communities of faith. So what we have used some of this property money for already, as Treasurer Brent has suggested, is it does help to, it pays for some of the salaries that we have in relation to our Right Relations Minister. We've also used some of this money from the property fund when things have come before the executive that using property money makes sense to pay out those items while they're making their deliberations throughout the year. What the executive wanted to do was to be able to, we also have the money invested, and so then the investment income from the property fund is also then used as part of the investment income that we receive as the regional council to help run the regional council business for everybody. And so what the executive was hoping to do was they wanted to bring a couple proposals to the regional council meeting for everyone to have a look at and to hopefully be willing to approve in different ways of using some of that money, so that the executive has a little bit more direction on how we can use that money to support communities of faith. And so if you want to put that back up now, John, that would be great. So we have 3 different funds that we're going to be talking about. We will talk about each one on its own. So the first one is a bridge loan fund and matching grant fund. So I've already went through what the issue is. So we can keep moving on, John. Yep. So what the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council might do. So these funds, as we have talked about before with the budget, have been looked over and gone through by the executive, as well as on the executive are members of all 3 commissions. So they're trying to see where needs have been raised in the commission work, in the executive work, trying to answer it. So in order for this fund to help resolve the issue, what the regional council might do is create the following fund, setting it up with a transfer of $500,000 from the property fund. And then the terms of reference from this fund would be that it would be for bridging loans and matching grants to a maximum of $50,000. The fund must contain $150,000 to start the next calendar year, providing funds are available from the sale of church property. The granting body and oversight would be the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council Executive, with the executive to report annually to the regional council on how the funds have supported communities of faith with bridging loans or matching grants for debt reduction. So the criteria of this fund would be that bridge financing loans to a maximum of $50,000 at 4% interest to be paid back on a 3-year term, with the repayment beginning after 6 months, those first 6 months at 0% interest. Matching grants of up to $50,000 given to communities of faith who hold a capital fundraiser to help pay off debt. A community of faith can apply for a matching grant once every 3 years. And if the congregation disbands within 3 years of receiving a matching grant, then the grant is to be repaid to the regional property fund from the proceeds of the sale of the building before any disbursements are made. So just to answer a few of the questions for clarification, part of the idea to a max of $50,000 at 4% interest over 3 years, I think if the math was correct on that, someone had said it would be somewhere between around $900 a month repayment, I believe. But that's also if it's at the maximum. So any applications would be completed by a community of faith and submitted to the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council Executive. So I think we can open it up for questions of clarification, President Jennifer.
Okay, so are there any questions for clarification about the creation of this bridge loan fund and matching grants fund? If you have a question, I invite you to raise your hand. And again, we'll reserve the chat through these discussions of proposals for points of order or points of privilege. Bruce. And again, I'll remind you to introduce yourself when you unmute.
Great. Bruce Dixon. I use the pronouns he and him. I'm from Guelph, Ontario, Dublin Street. Mark or someone could speak. What's the hope of the bridge financing? Its primary goal, trying to do. I see debt reduction. And are we thinking debt that's been accumulated, or is this helping with operating cost, or is this trying to help us address some of the loans that people got from during CERB and trying to move that from some other place and moving it to our region. So that's one. The two is, how did you settle on 4%? And I would be prepared to see that that interest rate be lower since we are lending money to ourselves. So those are the two comments I'd have.
Okay, thank you. So to answer your first question, yes, there are multiple reasons for what we're looking at here. I think the executive thought that the loans themselves would be they're meant to be short-term loans, where there can be a case where perhaps the community of faith needs emergency repairs to something in their building. And while they can get the money for it, they can't get it right now. And so this would be a short-term loan to allow them the money that they need to be able to do what they're looking to do. I don't believe that the loans in that instance were meant to be paying like for operating funds or that sort of stuff. The concept of the loan would be that you need this bridge loan to get you through a certain amount of time. That communities of faith are in need of short-term assistance for that. The matching grants, and perhaps we should have said in there as well to help pay off capital debt. I think the concept between that is because when we said in there hold a capital fundraiser, there are some communities of faith who have mortgages that are quite large. And so this is an encouragement to them that if on top of your regular offering that you're collecting, if you're able to hold a capital fundraiser to help pay off some of your capital debt that you have, that the regional council would add some money to that to be able to help with the reduce of that capital debt. It could be used for something like the CERB loans or something like that to have the debt brought into, as you said, into the United Church as opposed to outside. And to comment on the 4%, the 4% was chosen because this money is currently being invested and is being used to the investment income from that is being used to help support the regional council in other ways. So the 4% is lower than what some rate of returns we can get with our current investments, but it would be up to the court to make a decision if they wished it even lower than that. But that is why the 4% was chosen, because it is already giving the communities of faith a break on what the regional council could be making with that money if it wasn't investing in the communities of faith.
Okay, Colin.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Colin Snyder, he, him, ministry personnel for Wingham United Church and Knox United Church, Belgrave, and member of the Congregational Support Commission. And it's in that latter capacity that I'm interested in the question. Looks like the applications go directly to executive, and I'm wondering if there's any consultation or if that information is going to come through the Congregational Support Commission, because this is an issue that we quite often deal with and have concerns about. So I'm just wondering if we're part of the process or if it's going to bypass the commission.
Okay, thank you. That's a good question, Colin. You would be part of the process, as we have a rep from Congregational Support serving on executive, and we had some of that discussion. It is an executive issue from the standpoint of when the regional council loans out money, it has to come through the executive. I know the commission approves loans that congregations get from other sources. But yes, there would obviously be discussion and to have both parties involved to make sure that the executive had all the information they needed in making any decisions.
Peter Kupfer.
Thank you. Peter Kupfer, Trinity United, member of the Congregational Support Commission. And the question I have is, why are we limiting just for congregations, communities, for what do you call it, to bridge their loans or their debts, so to speak, to help them support that way? Can we not also include some of the church needs some capital to start a redevelopment?
So in this, thank you for your question, Peter. In this proposal for this one, it is a short-term bridging loan. So if they are needing the money short-term to help start something up that again they don't have the money for, that could be that's part of the application process and for the executive to look at. I believe, let me just have a quick look. So as it says, is bridge financing loans to a max of $50,000 repayment after 6 months. So it doesn't actually say what those bridge loans need to be for. I think the intent was it was for if a congregation needed some money, didn't need it as a grant, but needed some money that they would be able to raise and be able to pay it back, but just couldn't pay it back, have the full amount right away. So what you're talking about, I think, would fit under this as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Okay, there was another hand up. Okay. I want to say I appreciate if you have your hand up and somebody asks your question and then you can put your hand down. I appreciate that. Crystal, question
Good
for
morning,
clarification.
friends. It's Crystal McGee from First United Church, in Sound. And just want to clarify both and or application for a grant, a matching grant, and application for a loan. Could a congregation be accessing 100,000?
So as this is, yes, a community of faith can only apply for a matching grant once every 3 years. But as this is written, a community of faith could apply for a matching grant. In order for them to get the matching grant for whatever that amount is, they have to show that they raise that much money in a capital program themselves. So in order for them to get a loan of $50,000, obviously they'd have to apply for the loan process and have that approved. In order to apply for the matching grant, yes, that is something separate. They could apply for that once every 3 years, but they would have to show that they had a capital fund or a capital project, raise the money, and then it would happen that way. Because yeah, they're meant to be two separate things.
Okay, seeing no more questions. And were there any additions or changes that people thought of while they were hearing those questions of clarifications or while Mark was presenting that? Before we move and second things, we like to make sure any changes we're going to make are done before that happens, so that we can know what we're doing when we're voting, as opposed to having to make amendments and all those kind of fun things. So this is your opportunity if you thought this needed some tweaking to speak now.
And just a comment, Executive Minister Mark, in this phase also, it is tweaking that it's not meant to change the intent of the proposals. It is, this is where we kind of wordsmith or change little pieces. That's
okay. I recognize Anne. Oh, you're muted. Can someone ask Anne to unmute? Maybe that will help.
I tried that already.
Good.
There we go.
Can you hear me now? I just have a question for clarification. So the bridging loans and matching grants are for capital projects?
not necessarily. The matching grant it's to help. The intent of that is to help pay off capital debt, because you're not going to have, because a community of faith it's different for having a fundraiser to like meet your operating expenses for that year. This is, as it says, you've had a fundraiser on top of your operating expenses to pay off capital debt. The bridging loans is for whatever community of faith might need a bridging loan for, and then they can apply, and then it would be up. The executive would enter into a conversation and to decide if it meets the criteria. But the bridging loan is just a community of faith needs money now and are able to pay it back over 3 years. And then that's basically what it is for.
Okay, thank you. So the bridging loan can be for operating or capital or some other project.
The bridging loan could be for anything, but you will have to obviously demonstrate to the executive that on receiving the money that you will be able to pay it off as well to pay the money back.
Thanks, Mark. So it can be for a stewardship project too, a bigger one that you want to start as well.
Could,
and
then
we'll
then
get
you'd
the
start
money.
paying it back this way.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Kathy.
Mark, and folks, I'm wondering, our camps are also considered communities of faith, or they can be if they enter into that covenant. Would this apply for them? I would understand it would. I'm just clarifying that.
Yes. Language is communities of faith, not congregations. So, but a camp would have to have entered into to become a community of faith by entering into the covenant with the regional council and do everything that's.
Roz Vincent Haven.
Yes, this is also, you may have just answered this after I put my hand up, but would incorporated ministries within the regional council also be included in that?
I don't believe incorporated ministries are considered communities of faith unless it is possibly a camp. But other incorporated ministries, I do not believe. But that would be something. That's one of those. I need to look into that. And whoever is considered a community of faith as defined by the manual would be who is eligible. So that would be well, I have to check and see. I don't know the answer right off the bat.
Thank you.
And just a reminder of everyone, I'm saying your full name as I introduce you sometime, but to remember to introduce yourself as you begin to speak. Okay, seeing no other hands, I'm going to invite a mover and a seconder for this proposal. So I'm being told that the mover is Terry Smith and our seconder is Mark Laird. For this proposal, number 3, around the Bridge Loan Fund and the Matching Grants Fund that we've been discussing. Is there any debate? Seeing no hands raised, I'm going to remind everyone that what we are, sorry, of what we, at the very beginning, we talked about exactly what this proposal is. We're going to be voting on creating this Bridging Loans and Matching Grants Fund, where bridge financing loans to a maximum of $50,000 at 4% interest to be paid back on a 3-year term. Repayment begins after 6 months, with those 6 months being at 0% interest. Matching grants up to $50,000 given to communities of faith who hold capital fundraiser to help pay off debt. A community of faith can apply for a matching grant once every 3 years. If the congregation disbands within 3 years of receiving a matching grant, then the grant is to be repaid to the Regional Property Fund from the proceeds of the sale of the building before any disbursements are made. The procedure for this fund will be applications completed by a community of faith submitted to the WOWRC executive. That is what we are voting on. I'm going to call for the question. Okay, so we can close the vote. And that proposal is carried. Okay, I feel like we have enough time to move to proposal 4, Congregational Legacy Fund, and I'm going to invite Mark to speak to that.
Hi, once again, everyone. I'm Executive Minister Mark. So I'm not going to go over what is the issue because that is the same as what I talked about last time. So what might the Regional Council of Western Ontario Waterways do with this grant proposal? The Regional Council might create the following fund, setting it up with a initial transfer of $200,000 from the property fund. So this Congregational Legacy Fund, the terms of reference and available funds. The available funds per year would be a maximum of $50,000 in total could be granted by the executive with a maximum of $10,000 per application. When new money comes into the property fund, the executive will assess if funds need to be added to the Congregational Legacy Fund to top it up. The granting body and oversight, once again, would be Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council Executive, and the purpose, and again, the executive would report annually to the Regional Council on how the funds have supported new community of faith initiatives. So the criteria of this fund to be eligible to get a grant of up to $10,000 is to be given to communities of faith who are looking to expand their ministry or create something new within their ministry. Applications to be completed by community of faith and submitted to the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council Executive. So as you can tell, this is very broad because we have other grants in place that allow you to apply for money for doing a specific thing. And this is just any kind of new innovation that you are looking at and need some money to help with. So it was left broad on purpose for that reason. But I think we can go to questions of clarification, President Jennifer.
Wonderful. So if you have a question for clarification around this proposal, I invite you to raise your hand and I will recognize Bruce.
Bruce Dixon, him, and from Dublin Street in Guelph. Mark, the only question I had was with the 50,000, is that 50,000 per community of faith? Is that, or is it 50,000 for the whole region? Like once you hit 50,000 for the whole region, that's done for. I just wasn't clear what the 50,000 limit was for. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, Bruce. That's a good question for clarification. So it is most of our funds that we have already have set up have a maximum for how much can be granted in total throughout the year. So that way the entire grant doesn't get used up in one year. So the 50,000 is how much can be granted within the Regional Council in total throughout the year. Each application has a maximum of $10,000. So if everyone applied for the maximum and we did not get any new funds into the property fund in the next 4 years, this fund could last for 4 years with there being 5 grant recipients each year, each one getting $10,000. But that would be assuming everybody applied for the maximum every single time. And we know that In the use of our other grants, that does not happen. Sometimes the community of faith needs $2,000 to get something started. But yes, the 50,000 is the maximum that can be given to ensure that this at least has a few years of allowing people to apply for it.
I'm going to recognize Greg.
Thank you. My name is Greg Smith-Young. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the growth animator for Southwest Ontario, which includes our regional council. And my question is, what about something that is not yet a community of faith, but is trying to get off the ground and form as a community of faith? Would this fund be available for that kind of initiative?
I would say that that would be one where I would invite that group to apply and have conversations with the executive about it.
Okay.
Because I think I don't think I can give an absolute answer to that.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
And perhaps that group might be able to partner with a community of faith who could apply as well if they couldn't get access to it on their own. Just a thought. Yep.
This Executive Minister Mark again. And also for all of these, when grants come in, the executive definitely has conversations about, oh, you're asking for, we want to support this, and you're asking about it from this fund, but this fund actually has more money available in it and is a better one to use. So that's part of the process as well, is if we get an application, even though you might be applying to a certain fund, if there's another fund that will serve that community of faith better, we will change where the money is coming from to make it fit better. Because sometimes people aren't aware of what fund they should be applying to in the first place.
Thank you, Mark. For that clarification, are there any other questions of clarification around this proposal? Any additions or changes that people are feeling it could benefit from? Okay, then I'll invite a mover and a seconder. Again, it's going to be Terry Smith is going to move this proposal and Mark Laird is going to second it. Is there any debate? So proposal 4 is a congregational legacy fund. We're voting to create this fund, which will allow communities of faith who are looking to expand their ministry or create something new within their ministry to apply to the Western Ontario Waterways Executive. And there will be available funds per year up to a maximum of $50,000 with a maximum of $10,000 per application. I'll call for the vote. I appreciate your patience as we leave the vote up for just a little bit longer to increase accessibility to voting for everyone. I'm going to close the vote now, though. And that is carried. Okay, we're just going through this wonderfully. I appreciate everyone's questions and commitment to this. I think we have time to even begin our final proposal around new funds out of a property fund. This is the clergy salary fund, and I'll invite Mark to speak to it.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So this one we might have some more discussion about, or questions for clarification. We'll see, as this is something that definitely we have. I don't think anywhere else in the United Church of Canada do we have a fund like this. So the executive was actually pretty excited about it. And I just also wanted to note, Terry and myself are moving and seconding things just to expedite the process, to allow it to go on the floor for discussion. If someone really feels strongly and wants to move or second, please send me a private message and we'll make sure that you can do that instead. So again, I'm not going to go through the what is the issue, as it is the same as the other two funds. So here's what the regional council might do. The regional council might create the following fund, setting it up with a transfer of $200,000 from the property fund to start. The terms of reference and the available funds. There will be accepted 3 requests per year. Each request will be given a 3-year plan. When new money comes into the property fund, the executive will assess if funds need to be added to the clergy salary fund. The reason we have that in all of them is we do have funds right now that are underutilized. So we didn't want to automatically be putting money into a fund that isn't actually used where another fund is being used. So we wanted to allow some flexibility. That's why that wording has been in all of them. Once again, granting body and oversight is going to be the Western Ontario Waterways Executive. The executive, again, to report annually to the Regional Council how funds have supported communities of faith, maintaining or increasing their ministry time. So here's the fun part, the criteria. So this is to be given to communities of faith who are looking to increase their ministry hours. So for example, if you are currently a community of faith who has ministry personnel that you are paying at a quarter time or 0.25 time, and you are able to or wanting to bump them up to 0.5 time or half time, but need a little bit of help to do that. This is also to be given to communities of faith who show that they will not be able to maintain their current ministry hours moving forward. So that would be an example of a community of faith who currently has half-time ministry, but they can show to the executive that that is just not sustainable. They have to move to quarter-time ministry. They have no other options. And so they would be available for this as well, assuming that they can, as part of the application, can be showing why they think that with this help in 3 years, that will actually be able to turn around. So if the congregation does disband within 3 years of receiving the final grant payment, then the entire 3-year grant is to be repaid to the Regional Property Fund from the proceeds of the sale of the building before any disbursements are made. So here is what the 3-year plan would entail. So the first year, the fund will grant 50% of the cost increase for the increased ministry hours. The second year would be 30%, and the third year will be 20%. The idea for this is that it is a gradual, helping the community of faith maintain or build back up their ministry hours, but while still helping them, but giving them a plan, help along the way. So from my previous example, if a community of faith was moving from a quarter time to half time, the difference in salary from going from a quarter time to half time, the regional council, this fund would pay 50% of that difference in salary. It's not paying 50% of the total salary of the new minister or of the increased hours. It is paying 50% of what the increase in hours are, and then 30% and 20%. So for both in the criteria A, to be given to communities of faith who are looking to increase their ministry hours, or to be given to communities of faith who show they are not be able to maintain their current ministry. The community of faith needs to provide to the executive their plan for being able to continue with the level of ministry both during and after the funding has finished. So for all of these funds as well, obviously we're setting up the fund. The application for the fund still needs to be set up, and that the executive will decide what information they require to be able to help them administer these funds. Once that 3-year cycle is complete, that community of faith is ineligible for this fund for another 3 years. And the community of faith will need to report to the executive annually how the funding has helped make a difference for their ministry. And once again, applications are to be completed by the community of faith and submitted to the Western Ontario Waterways Regional Council executive. Questions for clarification?
So I was just going to invite those. Okay, I see Peter Kupfer has his hand up. You're muted.
Peter Kupfer, Trinity Elmira, and also director at PTCC. Are these funds being held by PTCC?
Doesn't say you're muted, but we can't hear you, Peter. Oh, sorry. Sorry, that was me. My bad.
Go ahead with your question again, Peter.
Sorry. I'm a director of the PTCC. Are these funds being held by the PTCC?
No, the money that would be used to create this fund is out of the property fund that the regional council has. So this fund, the creating of any of these funds has nothing to do with PTCC.
Good, thank you.
I'm going to recognize Neil.
It's Neil Parker at Vienna Community Church, him. I recognize that this is phrased in such a way as to help congregations that already have ministry personnel. Is it understood that it would also be that people would be eligible if they are seeking to call to move a half-time position up to a full-time?
That is a good question. I believe that could, again, that would be one, as I answered to Greg earlier. I would suggest, if that is the case, for that community of faith to apply and have the conversation with the executive, because obviously the executive would need different information of like that community of faith proving that they were only having a certain ministry and are now looking to, right? So it's a different conversation, but I think they could apply, and I think it is possible for this to apply to that as well.
I ask because it's a clear question of justice for people that are in position and not being able to draw a full salary, but it's a different situation when a congregation is unable to call somebody because not being able to offer full time. So,
yeah, no, that's helpful. No.
Okay. We're getting toward we're getting at lunchtime. So I wanted to have these 3 questions for clarification. We'll just make sure they are for clarification when you ask them. If we think that they could be moved to a different part, we'll stop you. We won't answer so that we can discuss it later. But if they're questions for clarification, we're going to just ask these 3. No one else put your hand up, but we'll come back when we come back after lunch. We'll jump back in with more questions of clarification. No, we'll jump into unfinished business. I forgot where we were going after lunch. Right after lunch, we won't come right back to this, but we will later in the day in our unfinished business come back to this and have more opportunity. So I'm going to recognize Kathy.
Sorry, I thought Kathy heard, her. I thought Bruce was ahead of me, but I know that there's a representative of Congregational Life on the executive, but this does feel to me like something that Congregational Life may have a lot to offer to, and that more extensive consultation with Congregational Life rather than just being an executive decision.
Okay, thank you for that, Kathy. The executive, as I said before, has representative from all three commissions on the executive who give their input, and the executive has historically been very willing when needed to talk to the other commissions to get assistance when things come in. So this is also one of those that would be a big thing, and so we wouldn't just manage it in isolation. Thank you for the reminder of that.
Bruce.
Bruce Dixon, he, him, Dublin Street in Guelph. I thought I should speak to it because it's a financial one, and I've spoken to everything on finances so far. But no, actually, the question I had was really, is there a priority? You had the two listed, A and B. One was about people increasing and those trying to maintain. Do you have a priority listing in that? I'll just, it feels like clarification, but it's also, I guess I have a bias towards trying to help people increase salaries rather than trying to maintain salaries. And I hope that doesn't get heard in the wrong way, but it's rare to see helping people move forward. And I really like that idea of this proposal. So I didn't know if you talked about a weighting of which would win out if you had an equal number of both. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question. The executive has not discussed that. And so that will be something for the executive to wrestle with when that comes along. And I think the executive, there are many members here, appreciates hearing your thought on that, Bruce. I think that's why it was also listed AB, is that I think the hope was that this was helped with growing as opposed to maintaining, but they didn't have that direct conversation. But thank you for the question.
Okay, and I'm going to recognize Judy.
Thank you. Judy Zarubik, she, her, Kincardine United Church. So my question is, what's PTCC?
Thank you, Judy. I had that in the chat as well and was going to get to it. So PTCC is, now this is testing me. Presbyteries of Toronto Conference Committee, I believe, or something very similar to that. PTCC was money that in old Toronto Conference, when property was sold, money from Toronto Conference got put into that fund. And so because Western Ontario Waterways has one of the presbyteries of former Toronto Conference, when Western Ontario Waterways formed, we were given some of that money. So there is granting opportunities from that organization that is found on our website under grants. That is the money that Brent talked about earlier as well in our budget that the Regional Council, Corporation, there we go. Presbyteries of Toronto Conference Corporation. And so there are monies from there that are able to be drawn on by the Regional Council that we do to help support our budget as well. But yes, it's Presbyteries of Toronto Conference Corporation who hold monies on our behalf that can be granted to communities of faith, and those are very good for capital projects. So you can, those are very good for capital projects. So I would suggest people look at our website to be able to apply to that. There can be quite a bit of money available there.
Okay, so we're going to return to this proposal in our unfinished business. I appreciate everyone for your questions of clarification. It's so fun to imagine the way that this group of proposals are going to impact communities of faith within our regional council long into the future. We widen the circle of our concern from here and now to encompass our ongoing history and legacy. Thanks for your faithful engagement of the policies that surround these new funds. We've earned a lunch break though. Our Zoom room is going to stay open over lunch. So you can either mute your microphone and turn off your camera and walk away from your computer for the next 45 minutes. Or you can grab your lunch quick and join a breakout room where you can gather around a virtual table and visit with other people over your lunch. If you wanted to like design a breakout room, if you're retired clergy and you're like, I'd like to have a breakout room with the retired clergy who meet, just private message. And we can get things like that set up for people. And then somehow we can let people know what breakout rooms are going on. But you have permission granted from me to turn off your camera, mute things, go have a break from this computer for a little bit. And as I said, if you are just longing for a little more chance to visit in smaller communities, then just come back here and let us know. We're going to take 40 minutes for lunch. So it's 12:39 now. So we're going to gather back to join in meeting by 1:20. So set your
President
alarms.
Jennifer,
1:20. Yes, John.
just so folks know, it's John, tech support. When the breakout rooms appear, you need to scroll to the very bottom to find all the participants or the rooms in order to select one.
Okay.
Linda, are you still here?
Yes.
I'm just gonna private message you quickly.
Okay, perfect.
And with that, our lunch break comes to an end. I hope that you are returning to us feeling refreshed and fed. Before we left, I meant to say grace, so I hope that you took some time to say your own grace. I had one written and everything. It was just on the top of my next page, and I hadn't flipped it over yet. But I trust that each of us has felt blessed by our nourishment and feel ready and energized to continue with our work. The first thing we're going to do as we gather back from lunch is to hear from our Discipleship and Justice Commission and the chair of that commission, Andrew Hyde.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can folks hear me okay? There we are. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Hyde, and I use he, him pronouns. I serve as the ecumenical chaplain at the University of Guelph, and I am honored to be the chair of the Discipleship and Justice Commission. I'll refer everyone to our written report that's in the materials that was provided, but just want to take a quick moment here to highlight a couple of things because I know we all read those reports really, really closely. But just want to make sure everyone hears a couple things out loud. First of all, we want to recognize the work that our commission does in support of the mission support grants that happen through our region each year. It is a bit of an awkward timing in that this meeting, this fall meeting, always kind of coincides with the discernment that goes on for those applications, those grants applications that come in. So we are in the midst of doing that discerning right now. I don't have the final outcome of that for next year to report to you, but want to highlight last year's recipients. So these are the folks who received mission support grants from our region over 2024. You are probably familiar with some of them, but I want to just list them off here and invite you to maybe, as I list them, give your thoughts to them, maybe jot down a note to follow up on, maybe just hold them in your prayers. These are folks that we have partnered with because of the good work that they do, and we support them with funds that we receive through mission support. So I want to take a moment to honor and recognize the folks at Camp Bimini, the folks at Camp Manetsatung, the folks who run the Christian Resource Center in Mitchell there, the folks at the Grand River Resource Center at Five Oaks. We are partners with Five Oaks as well, and with the Hub Ministry, which is that network of youth and young adults. We were pleased to support Westminster United in Waterloo with a project that they were running this year, as well as the Ecumenical Chaplaincy at U of Guelph and the Grey Bruce Chaplaincy that places hospital chaplains in some of our hospitals. So just wanted to recognize those folks. If you want to see the amounts that they were supported for, all of that is written up in the report. As we are discerning the mission support allotments for next year, you will probably hear back from some of those folks. Some of those are folks that apply every year, but then usually there's often a couple new ones as well. We never have quite enough money from mission support to be able to offer grants to everyone that applies. And so I just want to encourage folks that if you want to keep supporting ministries like this, ministries that are doing that good work of justice and right relations and faith formation, etc. If you want to keep supporting groups like that, really encourage your communities of faith to support mission and service. This is just one of the aspects that mission and service does in our church. They support some of our regional staff folks and other things as well. But we really just encourage the support of mission and service. It allows us to support some of these ministries as well. Next, I want to just highlight one resource that is available to us. We talked a little bit about new funds that are being created through the property fund this morning. That was exciting. That's kind of cool to see. But we also want to recognize that there are some funds that are underutilized that we have already. One of those is a fairly substantial fund called the Fund for Ministry with Children, Youth, and Young Adults. That is a fund that is administered by our commission, the Discipleship and Justice Commission, and it specifically supports opportunities to serve young people, to do, maybe like a vacation Bible school, or to support some of our camps, or anything that kind of works with children, youth, and young adults. We have the capacity to award $65,000 each year. And that is a fund that has been underutilized. Unlike the mission support grants, we don't get anywhere near $65,000 worth of grant applications each year. So I want to really refer communities of faith to that fund and encourage you to dream big, to think of what you might be able to do with children, youth, and young adults, so that you might make some applications to that. We want to use the funds that we have available there. All of that is up on the region's website. If you look under financial resources, I think is what the listing is under, you'll see the terms of that fund. We accept applications for April 1st and October 1st. Would really love to see some applications come in. The form that you fill out too is right there on the webpage. So if you just scroll down to the bottom of that page, you'll see the fields to fill in to make your applications. Okay, we'd love to be able to use those resources. Okay, and then lastly, I just want to encourage folks, if you are doing work of faith formation or discipleship, justice, anything like that, that you think folks in the region would love to know about. Sometimes, like we've got things and we would love for the neighboring church to know about it, or, it's nothing to make a trip to Kitchener or, Strathroy or wherever it is. If there are things that you could invite others to spread that word. Part of our role is to spread the word about things going on within our region. And we know that there are communities of faith doing lots of great programming. The info doesn't just flow automatically. You need to kind of share it with staff or with our commission, or post it on the social media things for the region, get it in the newsletter and stuff. We just want to encourage that flow of information so that we can know all the good things that are going on in our region. Okay. Yeah, the rest is in our written report. They're happy for you to take a closer look at that. Also, I would be happy if anyone wants to join our commission. There's always room to add to the work of the Discipleship and Justice Commission. Okay, I think that's all I need to report, unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. We had I'll just say the report is found on pages 16, 17, and 18 of the workbook and was a lovely report. So I refer that, as Andrew did, to anybody. We had a request for you to share your email address, but I also want to remind people, if you can refrain from using the chat. I was going to remind people as we came back from lunch that we're just using it for points of order and points of privilege, because if we use the chat while someone's talking, a screen reader will read what was typed in the chat over top of the person who's talking and make it difficult for people using screen readers to hear the people who are speaking. So I'll give you an opportunity just to say your email address out loud, Andrew, and then we'll just take a moment of silence when you put it in the chat.
Sure. So my email address, you can reach me at hyde@uoguelph.ca. Okay, so it's not U of Guelph, it's uoguelph.ca. Okay, I'll type it in the chat here as well.
Hey, I appreciate that time you've given us today, Andrew. Before we move into discussion of our proposals to General Council 45, we have a video calling us to name delegates to Youth Forum. I'm going to invite John to play that video now.
Hi, my name is Matthew Tyhurst, and I'm one of 7 other Youth Forum Leadership Animators for the United Church of Canada, and I'm also the Youth Forum Leadership Animator for our super region of Horseshoe Falls Regional Council, Western Ontario Waterways, and Antler River Watershed. As part of my planning for Youth Forum, regions across Canada get the exciting opportunity to select up to 6 youth ages between 15 and 25 to attend General Council and be part of the additional programming called Youth Forum. Now, there are a couple exciting rules that I'd like to explain with you when you are selecting these 6 youth. The first one is that a minimum of half, or a minimum of 3 out of these 6 youth, have to be Indigenous or racialized. Furthermore, there are 2 types of people that automatically fill up this roster of 6 people. The first one is if there are any commissioners aged between 15 and 25, they automatically get put on this list and they are automatically considered and welcome to be a part of Youth Forum. The second type of people are the Youth Forum Leadership Animators like myself, who also get put on this up to 6 people roster for our region. So an example is for Horseshoe Falls Regional Council, which is the region that I am a part of. I would be as part of those 6 people, so that means that what is left is for us to select a minimum of 3 more Indigenous or racialized people, and then 2 others that can be white or Indigenous or racialized as well. Or another example is if a commissioner got selected from Western Ontario Waterways, for example, then that means that you have 5 people left to select. I'm really excited to be working with all of you, especially in the months leading up to General Council, and I would welcome any questions that you may have. You can reach out to me with Matthew@sophis.ca, or Kathy Douglas can forward my name to any questions that may arise. Thank you.
Hey, for your information, those names that are being requested will come through the executive, but there is an application process, and maybe you know a youth that would just be a wonderful addition to Youth Forum. We at WOW do have 1 youth commissioner named at this moment to General Council 45, so we are looking for 5 more. And you can contact Kathy Douglas, who is our Faith Formation Minister, for the application form and process for that. She would love to hear from you, and then she'll forward any names on to, or any names will be received by the executive to be named into those spots. Okay. So we move into our General Council proposals. Our first proposal Sorry. Before we move into the actual proposals, for the general council proposals, Mark would like to speak to just sort of around the process of what he would recommend.
Thank you, President Jennifer. Executive Minister Mark speaking again. So I wanted to talk specifically about this before you entered into any of the proposals, so that it's not seen, what I'm saying is not biased against any of the proposals in general, but talking about General Council 45 proposals on a whole. So please hear it in that vein. So as I'm sure you're aware from when we talked at the spring meeting, we are first going to follow the proposal process. So someone will speak to what's the issue, what the proposal is suggesting to do. We'll have questions for clarification, any suggestions to improve the proposal that doesn't change the ethos of what the proposal is, that the authors then can agree to. Then it gets moved and seconded. We have a formal debate and we vote. If the proposal passes, then it automatically gets sent on to General Council. If the proposal does not pass, the Regional Council is then given the option of sending the proposal to General Council even though it didn't pass. And this is what I wanted to speak to. At our meeting today, including our opening and closing motions, we have 10 proposals that we're trying to get through today. Can you imagine if we also had other proposals that we were asked to talk about and think about that we couldn't make a decision on? Would that be a useful point of our time today? We have 10. I believe at the last General Council, they had 50. So I'm just suggesting to really think about if a proposal doesn't pass, and we then have the vote about whether we are going to submit a proposal that has not passed the Regional Council to the General Council for information. I would suggest that when you're making that decision, that you factor in the time of our General Council commissioners for what they will be preparing for when they're trying to prepare for proposals that they are meant to take action on. There could be a proposal that doesn't pass that you feel very strongly that does still need to go. You have that right to feel that way. You have that right to vote that way. And that is fine. I just wanted to raise that again at this point. So I'm not speaking against in any one specific situation, but for any proposal that doesn't pass, please think about if it is worth the use of the General Council's time to spend time talking about something that they cannot make a decision on, or receiving something they cannot make a decision on. That was just what I wanted to raise for everyone's attention. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So now we all have an idea of what we're facing as we make these decisions. Like it has a wider impact than just in this moment and now. So the first one we're going to consider today is the one that we did see at our spring meeting and that we referred back to the Congregational Support Commission with the approval of Glen Morris United Church official board, who originally brought this proposal to the floor. And I'm going to invite Ann Harbridge to speak to this as chair of the Congregational Support Commission. They did work on this proposal and bring it back to us for our consideration, given what they heard at the spring meeting.
Actually, President Jennifer, Lynn McClure from Glen Morris is going to speak to the motion.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So Lynn McClure from Glen Morris.
Lynn McClure, she, her, Glen Morris United Church. And I'm happy to bring this back to the council for consideration, the proposal to allow adherents to be elected to governing bodies of communities of faith in the United Church of Canada. As a small church community, we identified that we were having difficulty filling all the positions on our governing bodies due to limited numbers of full members in the congregation. And many of our adherents are faithful and devout Christians who possess skills and resources to become invaluable members of governing bodies and are willing to be nominated and elected to these bodies to contribute to the life and work of our congregation. And I believe given the discussion at our spring meeting, it definitely affects many of the congregations in this region, if not across the country. As background, the Manual of the United Church restricts membership on governing bodies to full members, with one exception: if regional council grants approval of an exception based on special circumstances, which is not defined in the document and thus doesn't even clarify the exception granting process. So the recommendation that has come forward after the Congregational Support Commission were in conversation with us, worked on it we identified some of the issues from the spring meeting, and the recommendation refers to changes to be made. If you have the document in front of you, it is the general change is that in B7.3.1, I love all the letters and numbers. I'll never remember that. And point A, the governing body has the following members: full members of congregation elected by the congregation or pastoral charge, being changed to read, with the majority, full members and adherents of the congregation are elected by the congregation or pastoral charge, with the majority being full members of the congregation. As you can see, if you are following along with it, B, C, D, and E are unchanged, but in the exception clause, which says in special circumstances with regional council approval, there is one exception to the requirement in paragraph A and E above for governing members to be full members of the congregation. If a congregation wants to name a governing body with less than 50% as full members, they must seek regional council approval. And so those are the changes that are being suggested and by this proposal. And certainly in our teeny tiny church, we have lots of people who identify as a Lutheran, as an Anglican, as a Presbyterian, as a Mennonite, as a Catholic. Oh, and then there's the body of the congregation who are United Church members. So we have a huge, well, not a huge membership. Let's face it, 72 full members is not huge. But when you consider that we have 35 adherents, that's a nice size. And every week we're having 35 to 40 people. So people are identifying whether they have become a member or not, and they are willing to serve and work for the life and work of our congregation and the values that we share and the spiritual direction that we hold. So I believe I covered everything. Anne, where's Anne? I don't see her on my screen. Sorry.
She's giving you a thumbs up.
Oh,
yes.
great. Thank you.
That was a wonderful presentation, Lynn. I am going to open the floor for questions for clarification. So these would be questions if you're not understanding something in the proposal, if you think something might mean something, but you're not 100% sure, this would be your chance to ask those questions. Uni.
I am Uni, she and her, serving Erin United Church in Erin. There needs a clarification allow adherents to be elected to governing bodies. In my previous experience in ministry, a person came to me to take a financial role. I could decline that person's offer according to the manual you read, because that person was not qualified to do that work. Now, what is your definition of adherence? How many days? How many weeks? How many years? How can you approve adherence if you don't define what an adherent is? We have to consider this proposal very, very carefully. The main point is to be a part of organization. One has to be a committed part of organization, at least as being a member. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Uni. I didn't hear a question for clarification in that, but we You did?
Adherent in our community, an adherent comes as often to our church and participates in the life and work fully by being a giver of time and talent and treasure. So we don't measure our members by how often they come. Our mantra at the church is come as you are, come when you can. And we encourage people to attend and be connected with us in community as we walk the spiritual journey of faith. And so I realize that we didn't define adherent, but does not the manual define adherent?
I was going to say that I believed that we couldn't define adherent, but we should rely on the manual's definition of adherent, which I just got a direct message from Alex Jepson, who may be a manual aficionado. He says, meaning an adherent of a congregation is a person, this is quoting the manual, is a person who contributes regularly to the life and work of the congregation, but is not a member or full member. Application, the governing body is responsible for deciding who is an adherent. Many people establish long-standing committed relationships with congregations without formally becoming full members under Section B